Hey everyone. Welcome to Zoetic Chat. Unleash your life's journey with me, John Mayfield. This ultimate podcast for spiritual guidance will answer all your life, soul and spiritual questions. I'm thrilled to have you join me every week. My vast knowledge, wisdom and experience are crucial to your personal and spiritual growth. Together we will explore a variety of topics and delve deeply into the truths of my life and spiritual path. Don't forget to sign up to my newsletter at johnmayfield.com. Hey everyone. Welcome to Zoetic Chat. Unleash your life's journey with me, John Mayfield. Wow. I'd like to take you back. Actually, I'm going to take you on a journey. My journey from July. In July, I was driving. Well, I had to go out, so I thought, right, I'll take my car. And I was just driving along the lane. I came to a little roundabout. And as I reached the roundabout, something flashed up on my car's little system, and it said, engine pressure, something, stop, basically. Those weren't the exact words, but I can't remember now exactly what they were. So I thought, oh my gosh. So my car just died. It didn't do anything. It just allowed me to let it coast just a tiny bit around the corner, about 4 cars lengths, to where there was a driveway. So I pulled in there and I thought, oh, that's weird. Anyway, I rang the RAC and told them what had happened. And I was quite close to home, so I went back home because it was going to be 3 hours before they came out, which is fine. I didn't mind that. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I think I'd got a week or 10 days before it was my daughter's wedding. And I'm thinking, my car's broken down. I don't know what's wrong. Blah, blah, blah. My daughter's getting married. I've got to move stuff for her. I've got to drive on the motorway. I've got to do this, this and this. And you know how everything goes through your mind. So I was having one of those times. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. This has got to happen. I've got to do it. I'm moving. All this has got to happen in August. But I don't even know what's wrong with my car. So I'm kind of like making that story up, really. You do that, don't you? I bet you do it. Anyway, the RAC man came and I told him exactly what had happened. And he said, I'm not touching the car. I says, what do you mean? I says, aren't you supposed to repair it, roadside repair it of the 99.9% cars? He says, well, yours is the 0.0001% that I can't do. He said, if I start that car up and it is your wet belt that's gone, he called it a wet belt. I said, I've never heard of a wet belt. He said, if it's that's gone, then I could make it even worse. So he didn't even start it. Anyway, he took it to this garage for me, and that was that, really. I couldn't do anything else. I think this was a Saturday. I'd rang the garage up. They said they'd have a look, but they were closing, so I took the car there, left it there over the weekend, and nothing I could do. So anyway, Monday morning, they rang me actually, and he says, we can't do this. He said, it's to do with your wet belt. I said, I know. He says, well, we don't do that. So I rang the RAC back and said, is there any chance that you can take it to this other place that I'd found? So I'd searched online to look for a wet belt person. Anyway, I found a so-called wet belt expert about a 20-minute drive from where I actually lived. Perhaps a little bit longer. Anyway, I rang the RAC and said, is there any possible way that you could take my car from that one to that one? I said, unfortunately, it went to the wrong garage. And they said, yes. Now, I didn't know this, that you've got, when you pay your RAC, you've got the option of a forward movement of under so many miles. And I was under that many miles. So I thought, I was really pleased about that, because then I got the thought of how do I get my car from one place to another? Anyway, so it went to the wet belt people. And it had it over a week. And I thought, I've not heard anything. So I rang him up and he hadn't even started it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, my daughter's getting married. I need the car, blah, blah, blah. I need it to go to work, la, la, la. I says, why haven't you started it? Anyway, nothing really was said. So he said, we'll start it. So I gave them nearly another week and they still hadn't fixed it. But in the meantime, I'd got my daughter's wedding. So I hadn't got a car for my daughter's wedding. There was no point fretting about it. But I knew I'd got a hire car with my RAC. And I got one for 3 days. So I thought, perfect. So they rang up the enterprise people. Can she have a decent sized car because she's got to do this with her daughter's wedding, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. I got there on the Monday. What? No, it wasn't Monday. Yeah, I think it was Monday. I got there on the Monday morning. And it was the smallest car you've ever seen, this little tiny red noddy car. I couldn't believe it. I says, how am I going to move stuff? How am I going to do this, that, and the other? And he just looked at me and he said, that's all we've got. I basically take it or leave it. So I says, well, I haven't got a choice, have I? Oh my gosh, I felt like when I was on the motorway, I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even overtake lorries, or I stayed in the lorry lane, basically. I thought it got no oomph to come out, nothing. So there I was, poodling along. But anyway, it got me to where I needed to go. And it was surprisingly bigger inside once you started packing it with stuff than I imagined it to be. So, I'm trying to chill. So that was solved. I managed to do the wedding, move stuff, help them. That was all fine. So I was managed to do that. And so I thought, right, get myself back home. So I did. And all the time I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. I'd already paid, I think, over £1,000 to these guys I'm trying to think of the right order because it's all got us quite confusing and messy. So all the time I'm thinking the universe has got my back. The universe only gives me what I can deal with. The universe takes me where I need to be and all that kind of stuff, positive thinking. Everything will turn out in the end. So anyway, I got a taxi to go and see these guys and he said, he told me how much it would be, so I paid him, and I think then I could take the car. He thought it was fixed. He said it's fixed. Anyway, I drove a little tiny way, and the light came on the engine, so I had to take it back. And so I took it back, and I said, I've got to go to Leicester on the Saturday. So this must have been a Friday. I said, I'm working in Leicester all day on Saturday. So, why has the engine light come on if you supposedly fix my car? And I'm just thinking, I'm praying in my head, please fix it, please fix it, please fix it. Anyway, he lifted up the bonnet and he did something under the bonnet. And then he went to try and start it and it wouldn't start. And I swear to God that they took something out of that engine. I'm sure they did. He put his hand in and pulled something. I can't be 100% on that, but I felt that he did. Anyway, I had to ring up this lady and say I just can't possibly make it. I couldn't get a train there. It was just too awkward. It would have taken me 4 or 5 hours. Anyway, I thought, okay, the universe has given it me for a reason. So I says to him, I says, well, what's the state of play now then? Anyway, he says, well, let us have a look at it. So I got a taxi back to where I lived. I've had so many taxis, so many Ubers, so many trains and buses. Unbelievable, really. And so I went back and waited for him to ring me. And he said, oh, it's going to cost another £600. And I'm like, well, what's that for? He says, well, we need these certain parts. I said, okay, but is it just exactly 600 or what? And he said, yeah, I think it was £602. But he's never, ever, to this date, for the amount of times I've asked, given me a breakdown of what those parts cost, what they were and what they cost exactly. So I still feel a little bit inside, you shouldn't be doing that, Those parts might have cost £100 for as far as I know, and he was charging me more, but I don't know. Anyway, so I waited and waited. In the meantime, I'd got to move house, so I was packing stuff up. I packed up some big cases and I was going to get the train to where my new place is, and put my cases on there and, get myself started to be moved in. Oh, so I planned it for this day, and the train strike was on. And I'm like, I can't make this up. I can't make this up in my head. This doesn't happen. So, yes, there was a train strike, so I had to get a coach. So I got on the coach. It was quite nice, actually. I was all relaxed when I was sitting there. There's nothing I can do about any of this, and I wasn't going to hire a car. I did keep thinking about it, and I thought, no, use some other transport. So that's what I did. Excuse me. Anyway, all the time I'm saying it's all for a good reason. The universe is testing you. This is a big test. So anyway, I met people that I would never have met. I listened to people that I would never have listened to. And, the conversations that some of those old dears have on those buses are quite enlightening, really. And the sadness about, there's a lot of widows were meeting up on the bus to go shopping, and there was some sad stories and sad tales, and I would never have seen that if I'd have had a car. I'd have just whizzed past the people at the bus stop, thinking, oh, look at them at the bus stop waiting for the bus, it'll be here soon. And little did I know that I was going to be one of those little women standing at the bus stop. It was quite funny in a way because I got to chill and laugh about it. Anyway, I took my suitcases to my new home and that was fine. I'd got work around where my new home is that weekend, so that was fine. Then then they called me and said, well, you can fetch your car. I said, oh, that's good. Is it finished? He said, well, it is, but the engine light's still on. I'm like, okay, so why haven't you finished it? He says, well, he says it needs reprogramming by Citroen, and it's in limp mode. Oh my God, was it in limp mode? I got hardly any, when you put your foot down, I'd hardly got any speed when I put my foot down, no pulling power. Anyway, I thought, oh, well, let's get away from them cowboys. So I took it to Citroen. Citroen says, well, we don't reprogram unless it's a recall. So I said, well, what shall I do then? He says, well, we shouldn't have really taken it somewhere else. And I thought, here we go. I said, look, I've taken it somewhere else, wet belt specialists, and now I'm bringing it to you because they've told me to. Oh, well, we can't do it for 2 weeks. What? 2 weeks? On the exact day that I need to be out of the other place, my home. So I'm like, okay, let me work out a plan. I had to keep planning. I don't know how I did all this. And this isn't just the messing about that I've had. I'm just telling you the bones of this, the bare bones. That company messed me about so much. But anyway, so I've got 2 weeks. So I stay at my old place most of the time, start packing bits up, boxing it, doing my work from there. The place is getting even more empty. I had another coach trip to where I'm moving to with 2 more cases. And so quite a lot of stuff was going. I thought, I can't have much more left. So then I hired a van, came back here, hired a van. Then I drove up there. It's a 3-hour drive. I drove back up there, filled the van. Oh yeah, I drove up one day and filled the van. Oh, right to the doors. Oh my gosh, I didn't realise I'd got so much stuff. It was only a small van, but nevertheless it was a van. And I filled it right to the doors, shoved the doors shut. And you won't believe what happened. I couldn't find the van keys. I looked everywhere for these van keys. I'd got other people looking for them, couldn't find them. I took every single morsel even, out of that van. No car keys. It was raining now, so I put everything back in. I opened every box, looked in every nook and cranny. And I remember that I remember putting them on the car passenger seat. That's what I remember. But there was a case on there. I lifted the case, no car keys. So I thought, that's a bit weird. Anyway, I thought, I don't know. Anyway, I took the case off and I leaned over the seat. Oh, and there were the car keys down by the seat. I'd already looked under the seats, but the car keys were the same colours as the metal under the seats. Oh my gosh. I thought, I'm going nuts here because I can't even see my own keys. It was so strange. But anyway, so time was getting on because I needed to take that van to the storage unit because I couldn't get everything in my new place and I hadn't got time. So anyway, I drove, not fast because I was just driving this little van. I drove to where my storage unit is, and I was there half an hour before closing. So I got there at 4:30. So I got 3 of those big trolley things, took everything out the van, got it on all 3, and then started to take it upstairs. Well, it was 20 to 5, quarter to 5, 10 to 5. And then I heard clonky, clonky footsteps, and I thought, oh, I know who that is. That's the woman out of the office. She'll be watching me now because she'll be wanting to close dead on 5 o'clock. She's a real stickler for everything, which is fine because if we close at 5, they do, don't they? And I looked at her. I says, look, please just don't stand watching me. I said, I'll get this in here by 5 o'clock and you can lock your place up. So anyway, she still stopped looking at me. And then she was pretending she was doing other things, but she was keeping her eye on me and the time. Anyway, I got everything in and I looked behind me. Oh my gosh, there was this table that I use, a 6-foot long table that you use for psychic fairs and things like that. I'd left it out and a suitcase. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I found a gap for the suitcase that just slid in. How am I going to get this table in? Anyway, I'd got my foot at the door. I don't know how I lifted it, above my shoulders and kind of literally threw it in and shut the door really quickly. And then I locked it and I could see the door was bulging a bit at the bottom. I thought, oh, just leave it. Anyway, I got downstairs at the signing out book. What time was it? Absolutely dead on 5 o'clock. 17.00 hours. And I just looked at her and I walked out and I went and got in my car. Oh, in the van. So then the van so then I came back to my new place, took everything out of the van that I needed here, and I got in my room and I was so grateful just to lay on a bed and relax. All the time I'm saying it's all for a reason, Jan, it's all for a reason. Anyway, so then I had to take the van back the next morning, which I did. And then the next day, no, that same day, I'd got to go back up to where I lived. So I got a train to where I lived and my car was there. I started the car. It sounded fine, but when I started to drive it, the engine light came on and it went into limp mode. So I got it to the garage, Shitron, I call him. And the girl says to me, she says, could you just wait there, Miss Mayfield? The garage manager or whoever wants to have a word with you. So I said, yeah, that's fine. Well, you do know you've taken this somewhere before here? I said, yes, that was all explained to me when I came in before. He says, you might be able to take this home tonight, you might not. He says, we might need to keep it for 2 weeks. You might need a new engine and you might this and you might that and you might the other. And I'm like, I can feel everything boiling inside me. Not with temper or anger, but just with, what the hell is the universe putting me through? So everything was bubbling up from the whole 6 weeks, I think, right up to this point, because this is the last point, because I can't go back to where I lived because I'd got to be out of there at 12 and they want my car between 10 and 5. So I've got to wander around Doncaster town centre. Have you ever wandered around Doncaster town centre for 5 hours, 6 hours? No, 8 hours. 8 hours wandering around Doncaster town centre. Then it started raining while I was wandering. I stood in doorways having phone calls with people that were trying to not calm me down, but keep my spirits high. I sat in Costa's. I sat in Starbucks. I spent a fortune on coffees. And then I thought, I can't do this anymore. So instead of waiting till 6, I went back at 4 because they hadn't rang me. And I sat in the waiting room. Anyway, this lady came over. She says, oh, you've been sitting here a long time. What's your name? So I told her. And they'd left my car till the last for some reason. Anyway, she came over to me. I got to pay online before they'd give me my keys. So I did that. That was another nearly £150. And then I said, have they fixed it? And she says, yes, everything's fine. I said, so I can drive this on the motorway to Birmingham now and everything's fine. Yes, she said, you can drive it. So as I came out of the door, they shut the door behind me, locked it. Then they started pulling all the shutters down to the workshop. And I thought, I'm like, well, where's my car? There was a great big car park and none of the staff were there. They'd all gone inside. So I did find my car. I got in. By the time I'd driven it to the end of their driveway, the light was on again. I thought, I can't believe this. And I turned round to go back and everywhere was in darkness. They'd all gone. So, I'm like, what am I going to do now? It's all for a reason. It's all for a reason. Anyway, I got in the car and, I was in the car and I could feel the limp mode and the speedometer wasn't the same as the mileage that I was doing because you could have ran faster than me and it was saying I was doing 50 miles an hour. So I know that something was wrong. Something wasn't talking to something else. So there's no way they'd reset everything. Absolutely no way, although they say they had. Anyway, I carried on and I thought, it's going to get better. They've told me it's all right. So I got on the motorway in Doncaster. I'm sure I was only doing 30 miles an hour, but my speedo said 55, 60. And I thought, well, if I am doing that, I'm okay. Because if I stay in the slow lane, then I could see these cars behind me come at 70 miles an hour, whoosh, and then just pulling out to get past me, whoosh, another one, and then another one. And I thought, I'm going to get killed. I did think that because the cars, you could see the cars were doing 70 and more, and then pulling out and swerving around me. And I thought, oh, please just let there be a side road that I can come off, a junction. Anyway, I had to keep going for about 15 minutes. Then there was a junction. I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. So I got on this junction and it was uphill to get off the junction. Oh, I was crawling. I could have walked faster. I should have pushed it really. Anyway, there was a Morrison's, so I got into their car park and I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I was shouting at the universe, why are you giving me all this? Why are you giving it me? Nothing came back. They never said, oh, Jan, come on, you deserve it or something. Anyway, I thought, right, I'm going to go the back lanes to my mother's, which was halfway between where I was and where my new home was. So anyway, I started on the lanes and it wasn't too bad through the lanes. I don't know if it was because there were lanes and there was no fast traffic that I could gauge anything with. It just didn't seem so bad. But the engine light was still on. It kept going on and going off, actually. So anyway, when I rang my mum and just said, is it okay if I come? This is like now nearly 8 o'clock at night. And she says, yeah, of course it is. And I says, I'll tell you when I get there. So I got there and I thought, I can't drive this any further. I just cannot drive it any further. So basically my car was knackered. And it wasn't an old car. It was 2019. So it's only like 6 years old. So it wasn't old. And it wasn't due until October, which I know that it's October now, but it wasn't when my car broke down. It wasn't due until October, and I hadn't done the amount of mileage that they say to get your belt checked, and I had a service in March. So it wasn't through neglect, and I'd really looked after that car. Oh, dear God. So anyway, what do I do? And I found this car in a garage not far from my mum's. So I rung them up on the following day, which would be Saturday, and I told him what had happened. Anyway, he says, well, bring it down and show me. And while I was test driving this other car, it was an older car, but it had only done 19,000 miles. Apparently, it was a elderly lady that just used to drive her husband more or less to hospital and back. Sorry, but anyway, so I went and had a look at this car. I thought, I've got to take it because I couldn't use mine, and I was quite okay doing buses and that, but it's my mother. I have to take her shopping. I take her to hospitals, appointments. I take her to wherever she needs to go. So who was going to do that, you know? So that's why I need a car, and to get to my events and working in the evenings and all that. Anyway, so we went and had a look at this car. I said, I've told you about mine. I said, I've told you exactly. He says, well, how do I know that's the truth? I said, I can give you all the I can give you everything that I've had on email from the wet tech people and from Citroen. So I emailed that to them, forwarded it to them. And then anyway, I had a test drive in this other car. I came back and he said, I've spoken to 4 mechanics that work for me. And he said, they've all told me not to touch your car. And I'm like, oh. I says, what am I going to do then? He says, well, I'll give you a certain amount, he told me, and which was 5,000 less than what the car would have been worth if it hadn't got this problem. So I thought I've just got to do it. You know, I had to make a decision. I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I did. I gave them my car. Well, they purchased it off me. And then I've got this other car now. And I am going to take these wet tech so-called specialists to the ombudsman for quite a few different reasons. The main one being they took money off me and haven't told me exactly what it's for or showed me any charges or costings or anything like that, and they still haven't done that. So I am doing that. I'm in the process of that, so I can't really talk any more about that because I need to do that. What did I learn? I learned that the universe throws things at us for reasons that we can't see. So one reason I feel was to give me faith in public transport. 2, I feel, was to see conversations that people had that hadn't got cars, that got on buses, that went shopping, that hadn't got partners, and they were all happy, laughing and joking. I saw a family, a mum and a dad and a little boy, and then a youngster in a pushchair, and she got a tube in her nose and she was being fed through her nose, and she was going to have to be fed like that for the whole of her life, and they didn't know how long she would live for. This is what the dad told me, and the mum was sitting down with her little brother. So I saw that, which I would never have seen. I saw a man being stared at because he wasn't walking with straight legs, left, right. He was walking with bent legs and looked like he could have had a drink, I would say. Anyway, he was going on the same coach as me, and he sat down on the seats near me, and one of the guys from the railway station was helping him. And I said, are you all right? I said, shouldn't you have some walking aids or something? I was probably out of turn saying that, but you know, sometimes your mouth engages before your brain, or your brain engages before your mouth, whichever way that is. Anyway, he said, yes. He said, I left him at a friend's house, and he was going to another friend's house on this coach that would have some sticks there. Anyway, so that was all right. And he said, what did you think when you saw me? I said, well, I thought you was a little bit worse for wear, to be honest. I says, but I can see you're not now. He said, everybody thinks that. He says, and a lot of people think I'm on drugs. And he wasn't. He got a liver condition, something in his brain, and something else which was taking his legs away from him, basically. So he was marvellous. He did a really, really good job. And I didn't feel bad. I thought I might feel bad for thinking he had had a drink, but I suppose, did I judge him for the way he walked, thinking he'd had a drink? Did he look like he'd had a drink? No, not really, when you really studied his legs, but he was a little bit loud as well. And I think that's what made me think something else. But, you know, don't judge a book by a cover, and you should never be judgmental, Jan. And I'm not very often. I just thought that's what was wrong. And there was lots of other people and stories and scenarios about that time. And that was more or less 4, 5, 6, 7.5 weeks of my life just gone on that. So I managed to not get my car repaired. I managed to get a new old car. I managed to see all those different types of people, help some people, talk to some people, listen to other people that I would never ever have met before. To have faith in that everything would be all right. I knew everything would be all right. It didn't stop me crying, and it didn't stop me blubbing, because I think that's my safety valve. When I blub and when I or cry, it's just like, you know, a kettle going off, steam coming out of your eyes instead of the top of your head. I know that the universe gives you what you need. I know that, and I was keeping my faith the whole way through. I don't mean religion, I mean my faith in that my soul needed me to experience that for my soul to experience it. There was a couple of times where I did think, what the hell? And then I brushed that away, and I think one of the ways that I got through it all was by brushing away my thoughts, you know, self-talk, self-preservation, still doing my meditating, still believing in the universe, because I could have quite easily thrown the towel in. But now I'm in my new place. I've still got stories to tell about the convent that I lived in Doncaster. And now I'm living 3-hour drive south from there. And when I wake up in the morning and look out of my window, and I see this magpie sitting on the grass in the same place every day since I've been here. When I caught a fox running around in the garden, it made me smile so much. When I go out in the car and I disturb the squirrels and they run in front of me, and the other two magpies that sit at the top of the pine trees chatting to each other, having a good old little gossip they are. And the other day, I sat doing a live on TikTok, and I kind of face the wall but face the window when I'm doing that. And this bird, it flew to the window and just pecked the window with its beak. And I thought, oh, that's a blue tit. But actually, it was yellow. So I had to look it up, and it was a great tit. So the great tit is tapping on my window. The blue tit sits on my windowsill. Then I have a magpie that comes and sits on like the apex next to where my window is. And I'm surrounded by wildlife, and it just makes me smile when I see it. And you know, last night I woke up, well, this early hours of this morning, I woke up trotting to the toilet in the pitch black, but I looked out through the window. Now, I don't draw my curtains because, well, nobody's overlooking me, so I have no reason to draw curtains. Anyway, I looked out of the window and I could see all the stars. And I thought, how beautiful do the stars look? And I couldn't remember the last time I looked at stars in the sky. I don't go outside very often at night. Anyway, I got my camera and I opened the window and I took a few pictures. The pictures didn't represent what my eyes could see, but they did. It did, in a way. It captured the memory for me, although I'd got it in my mind. So all of those things, and the people that I've met here in different ways already, is taking my mind off of those 8 weeks of, what shall I call them? 8 weeks of captivating, uncontrollable events in my life. Needless to say, my daughter's wedding went off quite well. Very well, actually. And everyone enjoyed themselves, and it was fabulous. So that went without a hitch. And it was such a privilege and pleasure to walk her down the aisle. And I wore linen. Now it was people look at it and say it's red. Some people say it's orange, but it was a cross between tomato. It's more of a tomatoey orange linen suit. And I thought, oh, is it going to be too bright? But her flowers had got that same colour in them. She had bright flowers, black dresses for the bridesmaids, and she was in white. And yeah, my suit went really well with everything, so I was really pleased that I wasn't too bright. I was just exactly where I should be. And yeah, so proud on that day, as I am all days, of both my children and my grandchildren. So you do go through everything. Keep your faith. Self-talk like there's nothing else. Self-talk to yourself, self-talk to the universe, self-talk to your loved ones. Keep yourself going, but just keep saying, it'll all be all right. I'm supposed to be going through it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to love you and leave you. And this is actually the second time that I've recorded this. The first time it wouldn't go through, so I don't know why. I hope this goes through. If not, I'm not doing it again. But have the most amazing day whenever it is that you listen to this. Take care. Be safe. Much love. Hey. Thank you for tuning in today. Your support is much appreciated. Please consider leaving a review, sharing on social media, and telling your friends about my podcast. You can also join my newsletter at johnmayfield.com. Remember, take what resonates from Zoetic Chat and enrich your life with wisdom in all areas. And stay tuned for the next episode.